Imagine this. Deep in the heart of Russia's industrial beast, flames lick the sky like a dragon's revenge. Not from Moscow's playbook. No, this time the script flips. Ukraine's drones and missiles aren't just surviving, they're striking back. Welcome to the War Update, where the front lines redraw themselves overnight. Buckle up, because in this war, the underdog just grew fangs. So here's what happened on October 29th. While most of us were going about our day, Ukraine's special forces were executing one of the most audacious operations of this entire war. 3 targets, all critical, all deep inside Russia. First, Volgograd, a refinery processing 15 million tons of oil every year. Gone. Second, Ryazan. This one's even bigger. It literally keeps half of central Russia's tanks fueled. Also gone. And just to make the point crystal clear, they hit a gas processing plant in Saratov too. All 3 burning at the same time. Now, when satellites pass over these sites, they see craters you could park a bus in. Explosions that kept going for hours. Even Moscow had to admit their air defenses failed. Jets scrambling, missiles flying, hitting nothing but air. But look, what matters isn't just that Ukraine hit these targets, it's how they did it. Not a single civilian hurt. Every strike calculated down to the meter. This wasn't chaos or desperation. Someone planned this perfectly, and someone executed it even better. Of course, Russian state TV has their story ready. NATO did it, American missiles, the usual script. But the truth? It's more interesting than their propaganda. Because Ukraine built the weapon that did this, and they built it themselves. Meet the Flamingo. Yeah, I know, sounds like something you'd see at a zoo, not a weapons system. But this bird flies 700 kilometers, and when it lands, refineries burn. Le Figaro got the story first, just a few days ago. Zelensky was in a private briefing, and he finally confirmed what military analysts had been whispering about for months. 9 missions, 9 successful strikes, all with this one weapon. 700 kilometers. Think about that for a second. That's far enough to hit almost anything in Western Russia while launching from relative safety. But distance is only half the story. This thing ghosts past Russian air defenses like they're not even there. S-400 systems, the ones Russia keeps bragging about, useless. Zelensky called it the most performant missile Ukraine has ever built. Charles Lescurier from Le Figaro dug into how it was made. Turns out it came from a startup called Firepoint. Not some massive state factory, a startup. They took commercial parts, battlefield experience, and pure necessity, and built something that's giving Russian generals nightmares. Nobody's quite sure if it's subsonic or if it can punch through supersonic speeds. But honestly, Russia's oil executives probably don't care about the technical specs while they're watching their facilities burn. Here's the thing people need to understand. This isn't about revenge. Ukraine's playing chess while everyone else is still learning checkers. Every refinery they hit means less fuel for Russian tanks. Less fuel means fewer attacks. Fewer attacks mean Ukrainian lives saved. Simple math, brutal execution. And while Moscow scrambles to protect its homeland, it faces an impossible choice. Pull air defenses back from the front to guard oil refineries, or leave them exposed and keep bleeding fuel. Either way, Ukraine wins. That's not a defense anymore. That's control. Okay, so Ukraine can hit Russian targets. That's impressive. But there's a bigger story here, one that's been quietly developing while everyone's focused on the explosions. Ukraine isn't just fighting anymore. They're building and selling and becoming absolutely essential to Western defense. Last month, Ukraine did something nobody saw coming 3 years ago. They opened their arms export market. Not symbolically, actually opened it. $2 billion in contracts signed in just 3 months. Let that sink in. The country everyone was sending aid to, now they're the ones supplying weapons. And before you think this is some feel-good story about helping out an ally, let me be clear. Europe isn't buying Ukrainian weapons out of charity. They're buying them because they're desperate. -1. The Gaze did a deep investigation into this, and the numbers are shocking. Europe can't make ammunition fast enough, not even close. Orders are backed up for years. Production facilities are running at capacity and still falling short. Meanwhile, Ukraine is cranking out 1 million shells a year. Artillery rounds, precision munitions, drones, and they're actually outproducing Russia in several key categories, even with Iran helping Moscow. Denmark figured this out first. They took billions of euros and, instead of buying weapons from traditional suppliers, they funded Ukrainian production directly. The result? Ukraine quadrupled their output of Bodina self-propelled howitzers in less than a year. New factories, new jobs, new weapons heading straight to the front lines. And now, everyone else is copying the model. Look at what's happening. Rheinmetall, one of Europe's biggest defense contractors, they're not just fixing tanks in Ukraine anymore. They're manufacturing armored vehicles there. Fuchs APCs coming off Ukrainian assembly lines right now. Lynx infantry fighting vehicles planned for 2026. BAE Systems opened an office in Kyiv specifically for artillery tech sharing. Thales and Leonardo are partnering with Ukrainian firms on air defense and electronic warfare systems designed to shred Iranian Shahed drones. You want to know what makes this different from traditional defense manufacturing? Speed. An idea goes from sketch to battlefield in months, sometimes weeks. Feedback from soldiers reaches engineers the next day. Compare that to Western defense contractors who need years just to clear regulatory hurdles. Ukraine's Brave One cluster, think of it as Silicon Valley for weapons, is connecting battlefield-proven startups with American venture capital. These aren't theoretical systems. These are drones that have already destroyed Russian convoys. Electronic warfare systems that have already blinded Russian targeting. It's all been tested in the worst possible laboratory, actual war. But there's another layer to this that defense planners are finally recognizing. Ukraine has the raw materials Europe needs. Lithium for batteries, graphite for advanced systems, titanium for aircraft and armor. Right now, Europe depends on Asia for most of these materials. One geopolitical crisis in the Pacific, and European defense production collapses. Ukraine offers a way out of that trap: local sourcing, friendly territory, supply chains that can't be cut by hostile powers. As the Gaze points out, this isn't about charity or alliance values. It's cold, strategic logic. Ukraine makes the West safer by making it more self-sufficient. But here's what really matters, and it's not something you can put on a spreadsheet. Ukraine isn't just selling weapons, they're selling knowledge, and that knowledge is priceless. All right, let's talk about what's really happening here. Because underneath all the weapons deals and factory openings, there's a fundamental shift taking place. Ukraine isn't asking for help anymore. They're offering partnership. And there's a massive difference between those two things. Listen to how Ukrainian officers talk to NATO commanders now. Not, can you help us? It's, here's what we've learned, here's what works, here's what doesn't. 3 years of high-intensity combat. The kind military planners theorize about, but pray they never experience. Ukraine has the answers to questions Western militaries didn't even know they should be asking. And think about the scale of this. 3 million drones produced this year alone. More than Russia. Electronic warfare capabilities that can disable satellite communications. Air defense networks that adapt in real time. Not in software updates 6 months later, but right now, during the attack. Counter-battery systems that track incoming artillery and return fire before the enemy can even displace their guns. This isn't PowerPoint war. This is data written in steel and blood. Every system Ukraine uses has been tested against a peer adversary using modern weapons. That's experience you literally cannot buy at any price. Here's the uncomfortable truth Western militaries are wrestling with. All their carefully crafted war plans were wrong. The ammunition consumption rates, wrong by an order of magnitude. The role of drones, completely underestimated. Electronic warfare, way more critical than anyone thought. Logistics, turns out moving supplies under constant drone surveillance requires completely different thinking. And there's exactly one country on Earth that's figuring out the correct answers in real time. not in simulations, not in exercises, in actual combat against a serious opponent. So here we are in 2025. Ukraine has cracked the code on modern warfare. They're producing the weapons, training the forces, and developing the tactics that will define the next half-century of global security. The question facing Western capitals isn't should we help Ukraine anymore. It's are we smart enough to learn from Ukraine before it's too late? Because let's be honest about what Russia's invasion revealed. European defense was a house of cards, ammunition stockpiles that would last days, not months, supply chains vulnerable to disruption, doctrine written for conflicts that don't exist anymore. Ukraine is fixing every single one of those problems, not with theories, with working solutions forged under the worst pressure imaginable. The West needs Ukraine now, not as a charity case, not as a moral obligation, as a strategic partner that possesses capabilities and knowledge they desperately lack. The only question is whether traditional institutions can move fast enough to actually integrate those lessons before the next crisis hits. The war updates, but the fight, that's eternal. Thanks for standing with us. Subscribe, turn on notifications, and we'll hold fast together. Until next time, stay vigilant.